Welcome to Battalion 13 the Podcast, Episode 6. Jake and Madeline tore through the streets of Baltic City, gasping for air as they ran. They stopped for a second to slow and catch their breath. Madeline dug into her pack, searching for something, while Jake drank deeply from his canteen. Mid-gulp, a vampire grabbed Jake by the waist, baring its fangs, and causing Jake to drop the canteen to the ground. Madeline reacted swiftly, fluidly removing a stake from the belt on her side, and sinking it deep into the creature's chest. They began racing again. Madeline looked behind. An army of leather-clad vampire soldiers paced after them. As she turned her head back forward, she saw the pothole in the concrete a moment too late. Her foot caught the lip of it, and Madeline tripped, falling roughly to the ground. Jake heard her cry out, and turned to see her collapsed, and a vampire with long ethereal white hair approached her. He quickly ducked behind a nearby wall and watched as the vampire pulled Madeline up by her leg and then dragged her along the gravel. Jake knew that if he didn't act now, Madeline was done for. There was no time for hesitation or doubt. He charged the vampire, landing a powerful jumping kick directly in its chest. It lost its grip on Maddie, and Jake pulled her back to her feet, setting her to run while he brought up his crossbow, firing the bolt toward its midsection. He then took after Maddie, not even waiting to see the effectiveness of the shot. As he approached an overpass, Maddie softly called out to him, and he joined her in taking cover there, under some chunks of debris. They could hear the vampires approaching, and they lay as motionless as possible, stifling their breathing. A few tense moments later, they heard the sound of a portal opening, and Jake braved a glance to see the vampires disappearing through it. After the threat had passed, Jake and Madeline began looking for shelter. They were forced to make a quick decision when the rapid darkness descended upon them. Jake and Madeline took shelter in the penthouse of an abandoned apartment building, surrounded by a security gate. The gate would provide extra protection from vampires and other threats. The sky was an abyss of darkness, as if someone had blocked out the sun, the moon, and every star in between.
It should be around noon right now, but I can't see a thing outside. No lights or fires. Keep everything dark just in case. We don't want the vamps to spot us again.
Ow. Oh.
Splintering, searing, burning hot bolts of tenderness and pain shot from her wrist all the way through her shoulder joint. Movement with her right arm wouldn't be possible today. Her mouth was parched with cottonmouth of the worst variety. It was slightly eased by the soup-warm liquid she drank from a Dasani water bottle. Thud, thud, thud was the only sound that overrode the crickets and cicadas. As she reviewed her body, itching commenced. Deep granules of dirt were embedded in crevices of each skin cell and forward. Things seemed smaller. Maybe a look in the mirror. Madeline! Darian awoke immediately after screaming his sister's name, finding himself fully upright in bed. The jolt of his sudden movement woke Kristen with a start.
What's going on?
I can't handle this shit anymore. I just had another crazy dream. Another one with Maddie. But she was a warrior. A starving, sore, vampire-killing warrior.
I know we don't know him that well yet, but maybe it's time we got some advice from your brother about all this.
Darian pulled Kristen tight into his arms. He then rested his head on her chest for comfort. I don't think I want to go to sleep anymore, Chris. I always see apocalyptic events, and there's nothing I can do about it.
We are here in one of the most amazing and unbelievable military operations that has ever existed. We are in the right place. They even understand magic here. We will find the answers. I just know it.
Later that day, the cadets began the tasks that would serve as their punishment for misuse of the Alice flower extract.
So, here's our supply closet. As you can see, it's full of items that are enhanced to help us do this.
It's not that bad, Fred. With your help, we can do this.
It's not that. I'm just so relieved. We all get to stay here. Sam could have kicked us all out. At least me.
So let's make the best of this, shall we?
Ethan grabbed an automatic wall scrubber, set it on the painted concrete wall, and switched it to the on position.
Aww, isn't that so cute? Chores are so fun here. Ethan's right. Let's go have some fun.
I don't know what you guys deem fun. Remember my special assignment? Cleaning inside the walls? Who knows what kind of gross shit is holed up in there?
Maybe there's a way to take one of us with you. Let's all use this as an opportunity to explore the use of our powers. You know, a spoonful of sugar and all that jazz.
Alrighty then. 13 dorm buildings to clean. Let's do this.
Yeah, let's say it all together for motivation.
Let's do this!
Max and Kristen always seemed to have a song for every situation, and soon everyone else joined in.
At the academy, you'll never want to leave.
Darian, Max, Kristen, Ethan, and Fred manufactured themselves into an 80s montage of cleaning and goofing off. Throughout the day, they found all sorts of dead vermin and bugs that had to be buried in the academy gardens. Max got really good at bringing his friends through the floors and levels and worked with Darian as he flew the supplies to the destinations where they were needed most.
Hey guys, stop what you're doing right now. You've got to see this.
Max sent a message through his communicator to have everyone meet him in his current location.
Check this out.
Max showed them a very yellowed spiral notebook with glittery markings titled The Akashic Academy Coven. Well, open it already.
Doubt is the enemy of magic. Use this new maiden moon for new beginnings. Cut through the mist of the Akashic Library. Eugene, Eddie, and Andrea, friends forever. Dude! This is about your mom and dad and some dude named Eddie.
Whoa, that's heavy.
Maybe Trent knows about this Akashic Library. He is the librarian, after all.
Actually, you're at the Akashic Academy. This academy is the Akashic Academy. And Eddie is Edward Mahaig. He was/is a very close friend of your parents. You may want to respect their privacy and return this lost relic to them.
Fred's right. We should ask them about it. I'm sure they will share it with us, but it wouldn't be right to violate their privacy.
Great idea, Fred. Fred's knowledge of the academy organized them well enough that there was no backtracking. Ethan enjoyed cleaning the dorms of the alien cadets. Their energies fascinated his psyche. It added dimensions and nuance to his abilities, emotions he had never felt before. Fred was feeling much more confident as a leader after guiding them through the tasks of the day. Kristen and Darian enjoyed being able to spend the entire day together doing simple domestic chores. It was a nice change of pace, and felt normal after all the craziness they had been experiencing. But by the end of the day, all they wanted was to go back to their dorms to shower and sleep. Jake stood across from Kristen and Cynthia on a sparring mat in an auxiliary room of the gym set aside for that purpose. They all wore protective impact-absorbent suits.
Are you ready?
I guess.
Don't worry. I'll start out slow.
Jake threw the first punch with his right arm. Kristen blocked the hit easily with her shield. By this time, she figured out that just having the amethyst in her pocket let her bring the shield up any time and gave her a little more confidence. Jake threw another punch and it was deflected. He began striking a little faster, but she still managed to block his strikes. It was time for a shift in tactics. He asked Cynthia to step in.
Cynthia, take this amethyst spear. I want you to focus your energy through the spear. Think about sending crystal waves of amethyst energy towards Kristen. The spear should send out tiny blasts of kinetic energy that Kristen can block with her shield. Okay, Cynthia, I want you to attack Kristen, and Kristen, I want you to defend yourself without getting too violent. Just fend off the attack.
Okay.
Cynthia turned her body for maximum aim and shot a few amethyst crystals toward Kristen. Just then, the crystals turned a bright white and began to illuminate with electromagnetic energy. Lightning and thunder sounds crackled throughout the Greek-style auditorium. Seeing this, Kristen panicked for a moment. She instinctually threw up her arms, and a crystallized force field was suddenly protecting her. It turned an amethyst color in the area where the lightning hit. She felt more confident knowing that she had this shield for protection. Maybe she could even learn how to use it to protect those she cared about. Just then, Cynthia lost control, and the lightning became a whirlwind storm above her head. Thunderbolts came shooting out of her eyes and began bouncing off of the marble columns. A cyclone was beginning to form in the corner of the gym. Jake ran over to Cynthia with a hematite leaded blanket and wrapped her up like a burrito. Kristen crouched and huddled behind her shield. Kristen began meditative breathing while Jake began to hum to Cynthia in a soothing, dreamlike tone.
Great job, ladies. You never know when your powers will build exponentially. Let's stop for today. Cynthia, we're gonna have to work on a smaller scale to hone your electrokinesis. You're one of the most powerful I've ever seen. That type of power unchecked could be quite dangerous. I'm quite glad you're on our side.
So, Denise, tell me, what have you learned while watching the view screens at the UAD?
Well, there is a lot going on, that's for sure. Something is attacking immortals. Not sure if that's new, but it seems pretty consistent. About one every night. A female leader took down a city in Italy that was having a teddy bear festival. That was pretty weird. Cities are getting blocked out of sunlight so that vampires can travel during the day. Not sure if that all of these are related. The cadets seem to be getting into trouble, but are learning some of their psionic abilities.
It seems you have captured the gist of it. Let's look at the replay on that female leader. Does she have any powers of her own?
She didn't seem to, but she had her own army of demon foot soldiers.
Very good. Keep an eye on her if you can. We don't know much about the renegades, but we had thought that they had a male leader. We may be dealing with a new threat.
So, how exactly will I help my friends now?
Just keep doing what you're doing, and soon they will graduate from the academy.
John, how am I supposed to keep track of what's what here? There's so many dimensions, it's hard to sort all the information out.
You're the brain here, you figure it out. I'm taking the night off. You should too. We all need a rest after such an intense day.
One more thing.
Yes?
The woman, she was spouting Bible verses. I looked them up. They're from Leviticus. Does that help at all?
Nothing I can think of at the moment. You know these villain types. They get something in their heads and they twist it around until it makes sense to them. Doesn't matter what the origin of the meaning was. We will need to find out what the verses mean to her. Was she scared by them somehow? Was there some sort of trauma? It's all very psychological. Good luck then, Denise. Remember, take the night off. Goodbye.
A blur hurtled through the air at the outskirts of the campus. Jake watched from down below, astride his Yamaha motorcycle, so he could follow from the ground.
That's it, Darian. I think you've got it. A few false starts, but you're really starting to fly quickly now.
Darian was bulleting across the sky as Jake's words transmitted into his earpiece. It was exhilarating, but for all the speed, he didn't have much control.
I'm gonna try to slow down. I can't maneuver very well at this speed.
Very well. Go ahead.
Darian attempted to slow himself, then realized he hadn't given any thought as to how he would slow down before now. He pushed his hands out in front of him, as if he was going to push off against something invisible to help him reverse his momentum. Nothing happened. He was coming up on the force field that protected the island fast. He had to do something.
Darian? What's wrong? It doesn't look like you're slowing down.
I don't know how.
Darian narrowly avoided slamming into a particularly tall tree. He was out of time now. He'd hit the force field in seconds. He pulled up, maybe going against gravity would slow him down. It seemed to be working.
I think I figured it out. I just have to...
He slammed into the force field hard. It flashed in the sky, and what looked like a crack was projected in the sky. Darian was falling. Jake saw everything as he plummeted toward the ground. Instinctively, Jake rode his motorcycle toward him, though he knew he'd arrived too late.
You have to levitate, Darian. Don't let yourself hit the ground at full force.
There was no response from Darian. Jake continued to ride. Suddenly, a burst of air hit Jake, and he skidded his bike to a stop. Just up ahead, he could see Darian hovering just a few feet above the ground.
Oh man, that was intense.
Darian noticed that Jake seemed to be looking past him. Jake's arm pointed.
Darian, you're gonna need to take care of that.
Darian turned to look and saw a stinging possum beetle ramming against the ground. Just as he looked, it burst through.
The shield will self-repair. It just needs a few minutes, but that beetle could hurt someone. You need to fly up after it.
But I still don't really know how to slow down.
No choice. I don't see anyone else with flight capabilities here, and by the time we find someone, we'll have no clue what happened to that beetle. Go!
Darian didn't hesitate any longer. He launched back up into the air, but tried to keep his speed at a reasonable level. He gave chase to the beetle as it zigged and zagged through the air, trying to elude him. He first matched its speed, and then incrementally sped up. He tried to match the beetle's movements, and soon found that he seemed to be able to manipulate the airflow around him for greater maneuverability, much in the same way that he was able to hover. Maybe it would work for slowing down as well. The beetle continued to elude him, and so he decided he was going to go for the kill. All he had on him was a small hunting knife, so he drew it and rocketed straight toward the beetle. He grabbed it and stabbed directly into its head. It struggled, but Darian managed to maintain control and keep the stinger from hitting him. After some further convulsing, it became still. Darian attempted to put on the brakes again. The air behind him was thrust forward, reversing his momentum and slowing him down. He slowly lowered himself to the ground. Jake was waiting there for him.
Well, how about that? You managed to stop it from hurting anyone. Good job.
Thanks.
Chad, Cynthia, and Kristen walked out to the courtyard for botany.
Miss Harvey, why don't we ever work in a classroom like we do in other classes? No textbooks, no papers, no research, no tests? It's a bit
Abnormal? Odd? See, I believe that a class about living things requires experience, requires a hands-on experience, and requires actual visuals. To me, pictures and words don't truly do this class justice. Also, textbooks are a punishment. No one wants to do a research report only using the textbook, right? No one cares, no one thinks, no one learns. There's no retention because there's no enjoyment. It just becomes a matter of spitting back out whatever I tell you and then forgetting every word until a final appears where you need it. And then you forget it once again. I'd rather have a fun jog through the woods instead of making you sit at a desk and listen to me drone on and on about the one thing I love most. And in the end, you won't understand anything because it's not real to you. Do you have a problem with this method?
No, absolutely not, ma'am. I was just wondering. But what if one of us gets injured in this process of obtaining this experience?
Again, it's a learning experience. If you poison yourself, sure, I'll help you with an antidote. But will you do it again? Probably not. And now you'll know firsthand that the plant is deadly. Also, it's been a great help to me as I study each plant and its effects.
How do we cure the poisons if we don't have antidotes? And how do we know what they are if you have them all?
Well, Mr.
Ender, ma'am.
Mr. Ender, you may find a cure anywhere. You see, it's all about experimentation. You'll never know until you try it out. For example,
Alicia picked up a small blue flower that looked like a ladybug until the stem and leaves underneath could be seen.
the powder that can be obtained from the stem and leaves of this flower, when diluted in carbonated water or water that has a lot of air pockets in it, like rushing river water, it can create an antidote to the poison suckle. Sometimes with antidotes you have to just get lucky, and if I'm unable to help at all, you can read the stupid 762-page textbook. There is a chapter on antidotes. However, there's a lot of them, and for some reason the writer has decided to make all the procedures sound extremely complicated. It's a pretty useless tool.
Why do you say the procedures are complicated, ma'am?
They tell you things like, grab a vial of this, or use a Bunsen burner under this to filter, blah blah blah. It doesn't help you in the real world at all, unless you're one of the most impractical and bizarre people ever. I found tons of ways to make antidotes without all that equipment, and they've had the same effects as the ones in the textbook. If you need an antidote, just get creative with making it. Use your brain. Some are very finicky, yes, but most are simple. Ah, here we are. Today we'll be heading into a cave, so everyone take a headlamp from this bag and follow me.
Alicia stopped in front of a hole in the side of a hill. She tacked a bag to a tree and pulled out a flashlight with a band on it. The entrance to the cave was covered densely with leafy vines and edged with tall grass. The sounds of rushing water could be heard not too far beyond the trees, and even some parts of the ground were slightly damp, despite the lack of any recent rainfall. The air felt heavy and humid, as if one were standing in a war shower and breathing in the steam directly through a straw. As Alicia parted the vines, total darkness appeared through each leaf. As she stepped inside, she hugged the wall of the cave, then turned on her headlamp. Every student followed suit, taking a headlamp from the bag posted. The little red-haired girl, though, didn't seem to notice and walked straight in. A small cry left her voice as she disappeared from sight. Chad tried to go back, but Alicia called out.
Mr. Ender, I wouldn't do that. If you step forward, you will suffer the same fate. The plants down there have a neutral alignment. She'll be fine in a moment.
Chad hesitated and then reluctantly kept moving on. Alicia stepped to the side and onto less treacherous ground. The groundskeeper reached his hand down into the hole, as if he was beckoning whatever was down there to stretch and reach toward him. The little red-haired girl took his hand, pulled herself out of the hole, and rejoined the group. Alicia shone a flashlight into the hole and showed the class what looked like an enormous medieval spike trap. Kristen looked confused and betwixt the girl in the hole. She didn't understand why her injuries weren't more severe.
Everyone, don't be alarmed. This is called the tickle plant, namely for the tickling sensation it gives off when its small parasitic projections attach to its host. On the outside of the plant, it has small projections which behave similar to tick, just extending and waiting for its host to come by and touch them. The big difference between this and the common pest, a parasite tick, is that it only drains one individual blood cell from its host at a time, per projection, and only once every few hours or so. As a cave-dwelling plant, it surprisingly doesn't need water or sunlight to grow and reproduce, though that may be its own survival instinct. For safety reasons, we have called them back into places like these and forced them to live here against their will. We actually have domesticated versions of these plants in the school greenhouse, and some people tend to keep them as houseplants. Think of them as cacti, vampiric cacti.
This clearly looks evil. Why do you say it has a neutral alignment?
Kristen, the tickle plant may look evil, but really it won't hurt you. If you get caught in one, it won't kill you. At least not very quickly anyway. And it looks sinister, but think about it. It's not hurting anyone. It's trying to live. And it's mostly harmless. How many things on this plane of existence have you seen that seem to have one type of disposition, but end up being another?
Kristen reflected and thought about the deadly poison suckle and the even deadlier Alice flower.
You're right, I guess.
Don't judge a book by its cover. That's something that I've learned to be exceptionally true here. Something that could be dangerous could be the sweetest thing in the world. And something that could seem perfectly harmless could be lethal. That's why you should take the time to learn about it, and learn what it really is without just saying that it's pretty and harmless.
How would one even take care of a plant like that?
You feed it like in Audrey 2 from the Terra 1 movie, Little Shop of Horror. Simply just touch it for a second and it'll be fed. Also, when handling it, use rubber gloves. By the way, I have noticed that if you keep it fed well, it blooms beautifully for several weeks until it dies.
The group marched deeper and deeper into the cave, and soon the sounds of slow running water could be heard, with little plinks of droplets falling into larger pools. In their foreground, strong arcs of lightning fired off, frightening everyone except Alicia and the groundskeeper. Alicia took a black trash bag and some heavy-duty scissors as she moved forward, stepping into the water. Chad and Kristen stepped forward and held Alicia's arms to try to pull her back to safety.
It's alright, once I'm in the water, I'm safe.
That doesn't make sense! You're gonna get killed!
Just trust me!
Alicia put the biggest smile on her face. Chad let go, letting Alicia slowly drag Kristen into the water after her.
Chad, help me out here!
Kristen, has she ever been wrong before? Just let her go.
Kristen reluctantly let go. Alicia began shouting from some waist-deep water, barely audible over the lightning.
This is the Blinzen Ost, or lightning branch in German. Germans discovered this a long time ago and misnamed it. It's really a vine that grows in the cracks of wet places such as the walls of this cave. It can generate its own electricity, as you can see from these arcs. This lightning serves as a small source of light for photosynthesis to some plants. It's also a defense mechanism against predators, shocking any and all who come into contact with it. However, we have discovered that because it grows in damp areas, when it is submerged in water, the lightning is neutralized and harmless. Watch.
Slowly it started to function successfully. When it was not submerged, rings of lightning came off of the top of the plant, traveling down the sides, and then shorted out once it touched the water. It rang like a Tesla coil too, giving off a low hum. Oh.
This is the vine, the Blinzen Ost. I want everyone to grab a bag and some scissors from the groundskeeper and collect a couple of samples from the river. Pull up a section of the vine, cut it in the water, and then scoop it up with some of the water. One sample is about 2 feet of vine. Be extremely careful.
Everyone collected their supplies and got to work. After a couple of minutes, the sound of a snap electrical current could be heard, followed by the little red girl scream. The groundskeeper came running out. He scooped up the girl and brought her to the shore, where Alicia treated her with an ointment.
She needs to go to the infirmary. Take her back to the academy, keep her still and quiet.
Chad ran towards the scene.
Is there any way I can help?
Yes. I want you to carry her while I make a straight path for the academy and part the trees. Keep her still and don't jostle her too much. Chad noted the large electrical burns that blistered her slightly tanned skin, arcing up her forearm and around her triceps. He also noticed a small arc traveling up her face, as well as many small dots from the earlier encounter with the tickle plant. He scooped her up, and the two men ran out of the cave. Everyone continued to harvest the vine for the next couple of minutes, and then left along the trail back toward the academy. Some of the trees now looked as if they'd been pushed out of the way, and several plants parted sections of the river, all in a straight path towards the academy.
Miss Harvey, why would we harvest this vine if it's so dangerous?
Well, I figured our research team would be delighted to have some. We can use these vines to generate electricity and power the facility if we ever encountered a blackout. Besides, it can't hurt to have extra pieces for further experimentation.
Will the girl be alright?
Maybe. She will have a scar for the rest of her life, but I think she'll be fine. This doesn't usually happen, so I'll be hearing it from Mrs. Madison for sure tonight, but she'll be fine. And I'll have a mountain of paperwork to fill out as a result. I think it was worth the effort, don't you?
Alicia winked at Kristen. The students then dropped off their bags at the base of the fountain and returned to their dorms for the night, still sopping wet from wading in a river. It was the end of another dreamwalking class. Everyone had left for their next class, everyone except Darian. Darian wanted an opportunity to talk to Sean about his dreams. In particular, the one he just had where Maddie was a dark version of herself. But he wouldn't mention that now. He simply wanted clarification on his brother's interpretation as the dreamwalking instructor, and maybe Sean could give that to him. Sean, I need to talk to you about some dreams I've been having. I thought maybe you could help me translate them. They make no sense to me, and they're the worst nightmares I've ever had.
Sure thing. Tell me, what's going on in your dreams?
Darian was still a bit trepidatious because of the dream he'd just had about his sister, but decided to proceed with his concerns. I've been having a lot of end-of-the-world dreams. In these nightmares, I don't have any powers to affect anything or interact with anyone. It's like I'm a ghost or something.
Well, having end-of-the-world type dreams are common enough, especially for people like you.
People like me?
Yes, protectors. You've often told me about times where you were forced to kill vampires to save people on our Earth, Terra 1, right?
Yeah, but vampires are common on our Earth.
Ah, but the protectors are not as common. You have the weight of the world on your shoulders, my brother. There aren't that many of you out there, and I'm certain that these dreams are just a product of the innate fears that you have as a protector, nothing more.
That may explain the ones from before I got here, but the dreams have gotten more frequent and they've gotten weirder and darker. Last night I dreamt of Madeline, or at least she looked like Maddie, but she was dirty and scared and running for her life. She was with Jake, our brother-in-law, but he was different too. I wonder if I'm seeing something that's happening in a different reality. Sean had a puzzled look on his face. Then he had an idea.
It is possible. The only person that can tell you for sure if what you're seeing in your dreams is real, perhaps by combing through dimensional windows, is Sam. She understands that stuff a lot better than I do, and she's really good at opening windows and portals to other worlds.
I don't know. I think she's pretty pissed at me right now. I'm not sure she would even want to help with this. I'm kind of on probation for participating in the Alice Flower incident.
Nonsense. She's still our sister. I'm certain she'll want to help. The conversation may reveal many things to us. It may uncover someone that needs saving, or it may uncover that all of this is just fine and you just have an overactive imagination. Hey, that also runs in our family, but sometimes dreams turn out to be true. Let me call her up and see if she can stop by.
Sean tapped a spot under his right ear.
Samantha Madison.
Samantha was working on a development plan for Denise in her office at the academy when she heard the communicator under her right ear chirp with a message from her brother.
Yes?
Hey Sam, I have Darian here, and I know you two aren't on the best of terms right now, but he needs our help.
What does he need my help with?
Well, it's kind of a lot to go over on the comms. Any chance you can stop by my house tonight? We can have a nice family dinner, and then you and Darian can talk about his dreams.
I suppose. It has been a while since we shared a meal together. What time do you want me there?
1800. I would love to see Jake. I will invite Kristen, too.
Sounds like a plan. I'll let Jake know.
Good, it's been too long since we did this. I'll let Alicia know, and I'll tell Darian to let Kristen know. See you then.
Sean was enthusiastic and eager for the event. It had been a very long time since they had shared a meal together like a family.
This will be fun. Aside from your business with Sam, that is.
Darian grimaced at the thought of asking Sam for a favor after just recently pissing her off. He would soon learn more about his older sister and the extent of her grudges. Darian and Kristen arrived at 1805 and proceeded to enter without knocking. After all, it was now the family home. Since everyone was probably already there, they figured they could just walk in. Sean was in the kitchen, cooking, and Alicia was helping him. At the table sat Samantha and Jake. They were holding hands and talking about how familiar the house looked. Just then, they noticed Darian and Kristen walking in.
Hey guys, come sit down so we can talk. I promise, I won't bite. I'm not a vampire.
Darian and Kristen sat down across the table from Jake and Samantha.
Darian, Kristen, I want to say we need to move past what happened last week. I know this place is strange, and you guys didn't know the full danger of the Alice flower extract. Luckily, no one got hurt. Unfortunately, this is on all of your permanent records. Please exercise better judgment. That is all I am going to say about it.
Yeah, sis, we are so sorry we caused you all that trouble. I promise nothing like that will ever happen again.
I wish I had known what it was. I never would have drank that punch if I had known. Alicia told my class all about that flower. If I had only...
Don't worry about it now. Worrying does nothing but stress you out. You have all been punished, and it's time to move on.
Samantha then shifted her attention to Darian.
So, I understand that you've been having some strange dreams. Let's talk about that.
Just as Darian was about to speak, Sean and Alicia came into the room with a tray full of food. It was another type of bug that was big enough for the whole family to enjoy. Darian recognized it from the hunt they had been on the previous weekend.
Dinner is served. No sense in talking about anything on an empty stomach. This meal is seasoned with lemon thyme and butter. Lots of squashes to round out the juiciness of the roast beast.
Alicia scooped out the meat and veggies for each person and handed them their plates. They all began eating, and about 15 minutes later, most everyone was satisfied.
Well, Darian, tell me about your dreams.
Okay, well, these started a while back. A few months ago, on the morning of my high school graduation, I dreamt that I was in Baltic City, and it was being destroyed. I was powerless to stop it, and then someone spoke to me and I couldn't recognize the voice at the time. But now that I think about it, it sounded an awful lot like Sean. Sean was visibly taken aback by this.
What did I say?
You said, "Isn't this the way you thought it would turn out?"
And this happened the morning of your graduation?
Yes. At the time it felt a little menacing, but it could have easily just been a random memory of you or something.
That is strange. I'm not sure what to make of that one yet. Tell us the one about Madeline?
Right, well, that one was different. I don't think it was our Maddie. She was in a bad place, surrounded by vampires. Jake, you were there.
Really? What was he doing?
Jake, you were helping her. You both looked like you had been through hell, but you fought together like you had been through the whole thing together. You protected each other. But Maddie was tired and began making mistakes. She actually got bit at one point, but Jake put some sort of healing bandage on her.
What makes you think that she's not our Madeline?
Because she was with Jake, and he was definitely not our Jake. I'm really concerned about what this poor version of Maddie is going through. Another thing to mention is the fact that she was the exact same age that she is now, but she was not wearing any goth clothes and her hair was still red, like it had never been dyed. She was dirty, like sand and dirt was scrubbed into her skin, and hungry, so hungry, and all she had to eat was a small can of tuna. And the world she was in, at least from what we've learned about the different classes of worlds, I'm pretty sure it was an obsidian class world.
There may be a reason you're seeing this. Maybe we need to open a window to that world. I'll need your help, Darian. I want to put you in a meditative state and see if you can help me locate the world you saw her in. Or maybe it's simply a dream. We shall see.
Okay, what do I need to do?
Let's go sit on the couch in the living room. It'll be more comfortable. Everyone else should stay here, but please keep the noise down, as any noise could disrupt what we're trying to do. It's a very sensitive process.
Darian and Samantha moved into the living room. Samantha motioned for Darian to lay on the couch.
I want you to clear your mind and focus on the sound of my voice.
Samantha guided Darian into a meditative state using the calm of her voice and a script she had memorized a while ago during her extensive academy training. It was the same script she read internally when she got into the meditative state for the interdimensional channeling that she did a week ago. Once Darian was in a deep meditation, Samantha began.
I want you to remember the dream that you had about Madeline. Think back to when you had the dream and focus on her surroundings. Do you have it?
Yes.
Now, I am going to reach into your mind and use it to see if we can open a viewing window into that world. If this was simply a random dream and this version of Madeline doesn't exist, there will be no window.
Samantha concentrated by pooling the energy through her third eye chakra from Darian's third eye chakra, and then she focused clearly on what Darian's mind was seeing from the memory of his dream. She put her hands in the air and began to form a window. Much to her surprise, it worked. She could see a world that was mostly destroyed. It looked like the work of the renegades, but she couldn't be sure. It was definitely an obsidian-class world, as Darian had described. She looked around and moved the window so that she could see different perspectives. There was no sign of Madeline or Jake there, but Darian had tapped into an apocalyptic dimension.
Darian, count to 5 in your head, and as you count, you will become more awake and aware. When you reach 5, you will be completely awake.
Darian did what Samantha said, and once he reached 5, he opened his eyes and stared at the window Sam had just created. Wow, that's the exact spot where I saw her in my dream. This means my dreams are real, but where's Maddie?
Not all of them, but yes, that one was real. You must be connected with the Madeline of that Earth. What we are looking at is Terra 2. It used to be a lot like Terra 1, but now it seems an attack has changed this dimension for the worse.
Should we go and see if we can find her? Samantha closed her eyes and concentrated.
She's gone from that world. I don't sense her or Jake there. And since we have no way of tracking her, we will have to wait until you have another dream about her. Next time, contact me as soon as you wake up. I want to get a move on this as soon as possible.
Okay. Darian and Samantha went back into the dining room and sat down.
Any luck?
Yes and no. The world he dreamt of was real, but there was no sign of anyone in the location we saw through the window.
Well, if there's anything I can do to help you find them, let me know.
So your dreams are real?
Some of them.
What about the one you told me about that involved your brother Matt?
This got Sam's attention.
Do tell.
Not sure that was exactly a dream. It seemed more like a memory. It told the story of how Sean got his scars, and Maddie got hurt too. It was back when I was like 12.
I remember what happened that night. Sean, you told me about it when I got home from my date. I remember Mom and Dad were livid.
I saw more than just my own memories. I saw what I think actually happened that night. But at this point, it's all a bit fuzzy.
Go on.
I think Matt was possessed by something evil. It made him grow uneven claws, and when Maddie asked to go home, he struck her and knocked her out.
Wow. Well, that seems to be the most likely explanation I've heard.
I have an idea. This night's turned out to be a bit of a stress fest. Recounting old wounds and mistakes. How about a board game to try and help us relax a little? There's nothing we can do for the other Maddie right now. Let's just try to have a good time for a little while. It'll do us all a little good.
Darian looked at everyone, and for once, he realized that he didn't have to decide anything for them. He nodded. That sounds like a great idea. Mom always said that we can act out of love or fear. In this situation, let's not be afraid. Let's act out of love and enjoy this rare moment with our family. As Darian and Kristen entered the dorm, Chad stood up and decided that he was just too exhausted.
I'm going to bed. I can't stay awake another moment. Good night, guys.
Good night, Chad.
Chad made his way to the elevator and up to his dorm room, where he quickly showered and changed into boxers and a t-shirt. Before he knew it, he was dreaming about walking the Academy Gardens with Cynthia.
I missed you today. We didn't have any classes together.
It's okay. We're here now.
He kissed her softly on the mouth and brought her in close. All at once, Chad realized that Cynthia's kiss felt too real.
Are we dreamwalking?
I think so. I felt super tired and went to bed early. Before I knew it, we were here together. It feels more real than a dream.
I wasn't meaning to bring you in. I mean, it's totally cool, but not what I intended. Kiss me again. I mean, if you want to.
They kissed again, and were transported to a high-class hotel room with candles, champagne, and a hot tub.
This is more like it. Where are we?
I have no idea. Let's just go with it.
Ooh, make the room purple!
Chad closed his eyes and nibbled on Cynthia's ear, and the decor of the room changed to a soft lavender hue. Purple flowers of all varieties appeared in vases throughout the room. The couple turned their attentions toward one another, enjoying all there was to feel, but were quickly spent. Chad thought about gourmet chocolates, and soon they appeared.
These taste real, like I'm really eating chocolate. I've never had a dream feel so vivid. I wonder what else you could conjure.
Chad looked around the room as the walls began to peel and drip, so he quickly imagined them back in the Academy woods, holding hands once more.
I think the place I created was only temporary. We're safe now. Do you know how to get back? Should I walk you back?
Chad woke from his slumber very thirsty. After a huge gulp of water, he picked up his tablet PC. He pressed the spot under his right ear where the comm unit was located.
Cynthia Trask?
Yes?
Hi, Cynthia. It's Chad.
Is everything okay?
Yeah. Funny question. Were you dreaming of me at all, by chance?
Yeah, I think I was, but some sort of purple hotel room? Can we talk tomorrow? I'm really tired.
Yeah, no problem, babe. Good night.
The next day, as Maheg continued his lecture, he began to broach the subject of well-known immortals.
I imagine that many of you are wondering, if immortals are prevalent in your society, why you have never met nor even heard of one existing. Barring, of course, the few of you who have disclosed your encounters with vampires. The truth is, there are many that you have heard of. However, their secrets were well guarded. Many for good reason. Immortality would be seen as unnatural in the time of their infamy. In fact, even in modern society, it could cause problems.
Do you have any examples? Who would we recognize?
You'd be surprised. Well, by some. By others, perhaps not. I'm interested in your perceptions, though. So, rather than tell you, why don't you take a guess? Who do you think may have been an immortal? Modern day or ancient history, it doesn't matter. Perhaps you would even find that two different people were in fact one immortal at two different periods of time.
That happens?
Indeed it does. Anyone have a guess to offer?
I don't know. Sean Connery?
Maheg raised his eyebrows. Cynthia and Eric were both giggling a bit.
Clever, but no. At least, not outside the realm of fiction. Are there any serious guesses?
Cynthia felt inspired by Chad's wit and made an attempt to match his with a quip of her own.
Elvis Presley. Surely the king would be an immortal. Must be why there's so many sightings after his death.
You may find it humorous, but despite your best efforts to not be serious, you have actually guessed correctly. Elvis Presley was, and indeed is, an immortal, though he no longer goes by that moniker.
Cynthia looked a bit taken aback. The mood of the class had changed, now serious.
Oh, wow. I guess there's something to it after all, then.
Anyone else? Maybe someone you know from history?
Socrates, maybe? He sort of gave birth to all of our modern philosophy. It seems to me like that could only come from someone who had lived several lifetimes.
That makes sense to me. How else could somebody come up with those theories at a time when no one else could?
Brilliant reasoning, and an excellent guess. And you're absolutely right. When he reached what would have been the end of a natural life, he faded into obscurity, but continued to train his apprentice in secret.
I thought Socrates was put to death.
Yes, that is what he chose to present to the world. His ideas were offensive to many in his day, and so he suffered for it. In the end, he took the poison and allowed them to think him dead. He spent many years hiding in obscurity before moving on, once he felt sufficient impact had been made.
That's pretty incredible. Is that sort of thing typical? How many of the influential people in history have been immortals?
There we have it. Yes, you will find that a great many of the more notable and influential figures in history were immortals. Not all, to be sure, but a fairly significant percentage. They existed particularly in royal lines. King Richard the Lionheart, for example, Emperor Jimmu of the Japanese royal dynasty. Other great or notable leaders like Benjamin Franklin or Winston Churchill are also examples of immortals. Of course, not all were good. In fact, some were quite bad. Adolf Hitler was also an immortal. Rumors that he was not truly killed were in fact correct, at least for a time. But he has been dealt with now. A long life can give some great hatred.
As Cynthia and Chad left class, Cynthia put her hand into Chad's and leaned over to whisper in his ear.
So, last night was fun. Let's do it again tonight.
Destroyer led James to a broken-down church. The walls had caved in on the surface, which exposed all of the skeletal structure of the building and made it hardly identifiable. Smashed glass decorated the pavement, and overgrown plants cascaded over the entire building. Only the entrance was uncovered. Plants and wooden boards were haphazardly broken apart in the shape of an archway. James was led inside, where he saw the pews were strewn away from each other, as if an explosion had occurred before the podium, where a preacher would have preached before the building fell into disuse. And yet, almost nothing inside was broken. A small man dangled from a cross on the back wall, but it was obvious that he wasn't in one piece. Half of the cross and his person was missing, as was his head. The podium had been uprooted and moved in front of an altar. A stone slab in the middle of the clearing had been moved to reveal a staircase that fell deep into the darkness, not revealing what else could have been down below. Another man sat like a delinquent atop the podium. He had long white hair pulled back into a loose ponytail and wore a tight-fitting black tank top. His arms had some muscle and were whiter than angelic light. He seemed to be lecturing some followers who were seated at neatly lined tables with limbs on top. The blood wasn't dry yet, signifying that this was a fresh kill.
Emerson, I have a new arrival. Nightmare told me to bring him to you. You know what to do.
Destroyer then turned around and quickly left. The man called Emerson then dismounted from the podium and looked James dead in the eye. His bloody and deep red-colored right eye bore into James's soul, seemingly trying to dissect him or dismember him for his afternoon snack. His left eye, the color of lavender flowers on steroids, seemed dead and emotionless, while his arched eyebrow above it displayed contemplation. His features were sharp and also a bit feminine, and his body was lanky yet slightly built. With his black tank top, he wore forest green camo pants and shiny black combat boots to match. A single silver cross dangled around his neck. After studying James thoroughly, he clapped his hands and smiled. His eyes became light and happy. His expression went from cold to friendly. His smile showed two gaps where the canines should be.
Hello, comrade. I see you are a youngling. Do not be afraid. I am Father Emerson, leader of vampires. While I am no priest, I am paternal figure of this group.
He approached James and wrapped his arm around his shoulders as if they were old friends.
Come, you sit at table. We have drink with others here. It's a good time, yes?
James nodded in confirmation and smiled back, showing the two long fangs that dangled in his own mouth. He sat at the table and Emerson stood before him. Emerson tossed him a hand and took one for himself, then addressed everyone seated.
To our younglings, who luckily made their way here and have reached salvation.
Everyone bit into their drinks except James, whose head was quickly slammed into the table.
Answer me this, new blood. Who are you?
Emerson sounded like he was speaking from behind him, and gripped his head tightly.
James. James. What do you think first rule is, James? What was that?
I've no clue.
We beat crap out of you in order to test if you are worth anything.
He lifted James' head so he could whisper in his ear.
So, let's see if this youngling has balls attached.
He then slung James across the room as if he were a frisbee. James slammed into one of the pew seats and slid down to the floor, his whole spinal column snapping and cracking from the impact. He looked up at Emerson, a blurred image before him. The only clear thing was that Emerson had this cold, unfeeling stare with a vibrant smile strapped to his face.
Come now, get up.
Emerson walked towards James and loomed over him. He then began harshly planting his foot into James' stomach, as if trying to antagonize him. One of the youngling females came over to him and clung to his arm.
Emerson, stop. You don't have to kill him.
He then spat on James' face and turned his back to him, walking away.
You're right. Word will kill him anyway.
James then rose to his feet, suddenly feeling rejuvenated with rage. He quickly ran up to Emerson and made an attempt to drive his fist into his back. Unfortunately, his attempt was futile, as Emerson sidestepped him faster than James could process.
Oh, so he does have balls. No matter, you will still see defeat.
Emerson then quickly planted his fist into James' stomach, knocking him back and tripping him. Emerson then sat on him as if he were a human chair. James then flung Emerson off and straddled him, planting a fist into Emerson's perfect smug face. During one of James' punches, Emerson unhinged his jaw and bit into James' hand. James noticed that the gaps in Emerson's teeth were missing. Now there were 2 long ivory fangs, seemingly chiseled with strange symbols. James could feel his fingers start to rip off around the knuckles, and he tried to pull his hand out with no luck. He then tried to punch Emerson again, but this punch was caught. Emerson then released James and flipped him onto his back, keeping a hold of his arm. He then began to pull James' arm back in such a way that it could have torn his arm completely off at the shoulder joint.
So you seriously think you can defeat me with such pathetic punches? Well, I will say this much.
He let James go.
I am lover, not fighter. Welcome, James. You have earned your drink.
He then offered James his hand, which James brushed off aggressively in response. He then sat back down at the table and began to drink his assigned hand.
At feeding time, I like to tell stories to my younglings, mostly of my past. Sorry if this bores you, but it's enjoyable to me. When I was young hundreds of years ago, I was rich Russian boy and my father's heir. I was destined for greatness. To be frank, I also charmed several ladies at festive parties. Many beautiful women. They love me. We dance, we kiss, we express many passions. Then one day, strange woman coming to one of my mother's parties at our manor. She snuck me aside into guest room. I expect usual occurrence. Instead, she bit me, sunk her teeth in, and I was a changed man. Little did I know that later on, I wasn't just lover, but now biter. My first woman after that, I killed her. I expressed too much passion and accidentally bit a woman too hard. After one taste, I kept drinking, and well, after that, I never laid teeth into another living woman unless she asked first. It was great fun, playing with blood. In our hideout, you'll find several sluts and whores who will be happy to give you drink from them. But I have several marked for myself, so don't touch. These ones won't be like my last encounter, lucky for you. Haha. My last encounter, I messed around with Siberian princess. When she turned out to be with child, I may or may not have been sealed away in dungeon beneath a mortal prison for hundreds of years. That is, until Nightmare dug me out. Promised me all the women blood I could ever want if I helped him.
Emerson began to zone out, staring off into the distance. James and the other younglings began looking around to see what he was focusing on, and found a small cluster of flowers. The flowers were small, but many in number, and they were a mix of pastel colors. They waited for Emerson to come back to them and talk more, but he remained fixated on the flowers, like a child looking at the clearest summer sky for the first time. One of the younglings coughed, as if to try to bring Emerson back from this lengthy, uncomfortable silence, but Emerson remained untouchable. After a while, Emerson came back to reality.
Anyway, you all must be tired. Follow me.
Emerson walked down the stairs and led the Newbloods into the dark. Beneath this church sat an entire army of vampires, by the hundreds. Mixed in were some humans being treated like cattle, only they were smiling and happy to be slaughtered. They were all packed into a room the shape of the sewers, stone bricks lining the walls upwards. Tents were pitched for privacy, and were in lines along the walls. Emerson smiled and gestured to the place.
Welcome home, young ones. Make yourself comfortable. Grab tent, grab drink, enjoy yourselves. And James, hope you learned something from sparring. Let's do again sometime.
He smiled cheekily as he walked away, a slight skip in his step. James rolled his eyes and decided to try to sleep. He found an isolated and vacant tent and laid down inside. Although he tried to rest, he couldn't help feeling on edge, until a bout of insomnia and restlessness overtook him. Jesse was excited about advanced robotics. When he first got into the classroom, he noticed that there weren't that many people in the class. He didn't recognize anyone at first, but then he spotted John Matthews.
Hey John, I didn't know you were interested in robotics.
Well, I guess I'm just full of surprises.
As they were talking, the teacher arrived. He was about 5'10" tall, very thin and bald. He was wearing a white lab coat and black pants.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Thomas Carson. Today we will be going over the basics for programming the microcomputers that control the servos and motors in these robots here.
He pointed at a few small drone-like robots that were sitting on a table next to the windows. They looked like 12-inch action figures of robots.
They may look like toys, but they are actually advanced robots used for surveillance and other covert operations. First, we must learn how to control them.
Dr. Carson picked up a small computer pad. It was smaller than the ones used for the textbooks there, but it was a little thicker. It had a touch screen and was currently locked, requiring a password to access the list of commands used to control the little robots. The doctor typed in his password, and then his pad screen showed a selection.
If you look at this pad, the first thing you want to do after putting in your 8-digit passcode is to select which robot you want to control. If you look at this pad, you'll notice that there are pictures of the different robots. You simply select which one you want to control by touching the icon that represents that particular robot. Today, we will learn about this one here.
He pointed to the one on the far left.
This one has no frills. It is simply a walking drone that can camouflage into any surrounding. Now, I am going to use a simple algorithm that I designed a long time ago to control this robot. This algorithm is saved in each of these pads for later use and can be used by anyone who has access to this pad.
Dr. Carson tapped a few spots on the tablet, and the robot in question came to life. It stood up and began looking around. The robot hopped off of the table and walked to a cabinet on the other side of the room. It opened the door and grabbed out a can of lubricant. It then brought the canned lubricant back to the table and sat down facing the windows. A small port in its back opened up.
You see, what I did was tell the robot to go find this lubricant and bring it to me so that I could fill up its lubricant port. This allows the robots to move silently rather than making any type of squeaking or cranking noises. This was a simple program, and it helps them keep up with their maintenance schedules. I will now simply pour some of this liquid into its port, and then the robot will return the can of lubricant back to the cabinet where it came from.
Dr. Carson carefully poured some of the lubricant into the open port and then closed it. The robot then quickly stood up and took the can back to the cabinet.
You see, these robots have a type of artificial intelligence, but it is a very low intelligence level. They take commands from these pads. We are developing new robots which are voice activated, but this may take some time. Any questions?
John's hand shot up.
Yes, Mr.
John Matthews, I was wondering what practical use there is for these types of small robots.
Well, other than helping us keep up with their maintenance schedules, as stated before, this one is good for covert operations. The others are good for menial tasks in various fields. Most notably, we used a few of these to plant explosives at a construction site in order to clear the site of any plant life that would otherwise interfere with the development of the site. Uses range from simple tasks like what I just said, to more complicated tasks like medical surgery, although we usually leave anything really delicate to much smaller robots.
Jesse raised his hand.
Yes, you there, Mr.
Jesse Barnes. I was wondering if anyone had ever tried to make a robotic exosuit. Maybe even one that can be controlled remotely.
Dr. Carson was intrigued by the young man's idea.
Not at this time, but we are always looking for new innovations. If you want to take what you learn in this class and build yourself a robotic exosuit, by all means. I wouldn't mind assisting you in that project.
Yes, that sounds amazing. When would you like to start?
I think the whole class could benefit from this. How about we start next class?
Sounds like a plan.
A sort of adult playground wrapped around the grounds of each floating dorm module. Swings, climbing logs, benches, and merry-go-rounds allowed the cadets the ability to blow off steam and have an outdoor area for relaxation. It was a night made up of thin air, but it was warm enough for discussion. Sean, Darian, and Chad built a small fire in a fire pit which made it feel cozy and serene.
So, Chad, are you going to take me to the cadet ball?
Wait, when is that?
August 26th, Saturday.
It should be fun. Alicia and I will be there. Darian, you and Kristen could wear matching costumes.
What sort of theme? What's the dress code?
It's quite formal, and the theme is legends through the ages.
Ooh, I get to play dress up.
Oh dear. How many ways to mess this one up?
Cynthia scooted closer to Chad and planted a kiss on his cheek.
This is going to be so much fun.
This could really be our last chance for fun before things get serious. Life in the military, it could be short, you know? We gotta make the best of this.
Kristen has a point. There's a famous story about lovers at the academy.
Ooh, let me tell this one. Javelin came here from a magenta class dimension. Thought maybe he could spread the knowledge of his people and some of their practices. They were very advanced in medical technology. Met a young girl from an obsidian class world. Somehow they thought they could foster an alliance. She taught him how to survive on almost nothing. He taught her how to trust and love. When graduation day came and both were assigned to Battalion 13, they were relieved. Within 72 hours, the entire regiment was wiped out by renegade vampires. Javelin found Esther sucked dry of all her lifeblood in an alley. The same vampire that sucked her dry at the breast came behind him and took advantage of his grief. He didn't even have a moment to fight back.
What an absolute tragedy. Cynthia, instead of Romeo and Juliet, we could do Javelin and Esther.
No, seriously? Great idea. I'll wear a B-13 uniform and have a wound above my breast.
Wow, Cynthia. Embracing your goth much?
Well, they are legends.
Whatever makes my lady happy.
So, Darian, any ideas?
How about Tristan and Isolde? They didn't mean to fall in love, and neither did we.
Well chosen, brother.
Since tragedy seems to be our theme, let's go for John Lennon and Yoko Ono, Sean. That's such an interesting story from your Earth.
All right then, it's settled. I'll be your ever-devoted John. I cannot bear a moment without you, sweet Alicia. Now come over here and give me a kiss.
With the crickets chirping loudly and the beetles buzzing by, the night jasmine began to bloom. They extinguished the last of the burning fire embers. The couples had all begun to grow sleepy and walked hand in hand back to their homes, hopeful that the cadet ball would be a magical night full of romance and friendship. Destroyer, Dominator, and Nightmare sat around a mirrored scrying table at Renegade HQ. Destroyer procured the table during one of his many successful attacks on Magenta-class Earths, simply by directing his thoughts toward the event. In this way, the mirror would project any desired image.
What we need, Destroyer, is an inside man. One they won't be on the lookout for, because they've no cause to distrust him. One of the new recruits should do nicely. Perhaps one of those destined for Battalion 13. Getting a hook in now while they're still weak could go a long way in the future. Any suggestions? One of the ones who's not immortal and hasn't shown any psionic abilities? Such a one should be easily manipulated into shutting off the shield.
What about Jesse Barnes? He's always messing with some sort of technology. It wouldn't be too much of a stretch for him to go into the control room.
I like the way you think. This is why I keep you around. So what's next, Dominator?
I'll fly in on the dimension cycles with the red beetles and cause some sort of distraction. I saw that they're planning some sort of cadet ball.
Nice. Okay, what sort of distraction?
Well, there are all potential members of Battalion 13, so I figure we'll just lay waste to as many of them as possible while the Destroyer sets up the homing beacon.
My dream team. Yes, this will do nicely. Dominator and Destroyer, go and ready some formidable weapons for the Academy attack. Get Emerson ready with the Vampire Strike Team. We will attack those weaselly little snot-nosed cadets and place our homing beacon. You are all dismissed.
Meanwhile, at the Terra 1 dorms, Ethan popped his head up from his tablet.
Hey guys, I know everyone is going to the ball later. It's not really my scene. I think I'll just hang back here.
I plan to do the same. There's something Dr. Carson and I have been working on, and that's got my interest for now. I have lots of studying to do.
I don't know, guys. I think I'm gonna go. I mean, who knows what sort of magical mayhem could ensue? Plus, there'll be girls there. Girls in dresses. Or guys, if that's what you prefer. In other appropriately dressed attire. Or maybe dresses too, I don't know.
Sorry guys, there's no convincing me. I'm just not into large crowds. It's not mandatory either.
Kristen and Cynthia ran past the guys with dress bags straight towards the elevator.
See what I mean? Unless you're already with someone, it's just not going to be as exciting.
We could make it exciting. The theme is legend through the ages, right? How about the three of us go as the Three Musketeers?
Definitely count me out.
Jesse shouted towards Cynthia and Kristen to hold the elevator and rode up with them to his dorm.
What do you say, Ethan? Blues Brothers?
You really want this for some reason, don't you? I suppose it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Let's go, but I get to pick the costumes.
Totally. Dude, this is gonna be epic!
The group of 8 friends met in the common area of Terra 1's dorm building. Since it was a special occasion, they took a floating trolley to the Coliseum where the ball was to be held. Today, the floating trolley was decorated with sturdy, vibrant crimson flowers and leaves that resembled ivy. There was a slight chill in the air, but everyone had dressed appropriately or brought a jacket.
We're here. Sorry we're late, but Sean had to find the finishing touch. He's such a perfectionist sometimes.
Do you guys like it? The gold necklace. It really wraps the whole thing together. I like it so much I might just start wearing it every day. By the way, tonight, just call me Sean.
Looks good, Sean. I'm so glad you decided to come tonight, Ethan. Tonight wouldn't be the same without you here.
I'll second that. And great costumes, Eric and Ethan. Eric, you're Bill Wright from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the movie. And Ethan, you're Ted. Bodacious costumes, guys, really.
You'd think with all that magenta class technology they'd come up with a non-offensive way for me to change my skin color for the night. But honestly, I think I'd rather just have fun being Bill. We are all human, after all.
Well, some of us anyway. Whatever happened to John? I haven't seen him for a while. I hope he's okay. What about Max?
Oh, I spoke to John earlier. He's going with another group. They're doing some sort of military theme. He's definitely excelling at the soldier bit. Max is going with Pharos. Those two have become really good buds.
In the distance, they could see the marble towers of the Coliseum. It was decorated with the same red flowers that twisted the rails of the trolley. Fireworks of all colors lit the sky, and scents of cinnamon and pumpkin filled the air.
I hope there's snacks there. Cynthia and I forgot to eat.
Chad and I did too. Darian produced a silver-gloved knight hand and bent to one knee. May I offer the fine lady a kiss on her hand?
Why, certainly, kind sir.
Kristen placed her delicate hand into his and looked into Darian's eyes. Darian then kissed her silk-white gloved hand. Kristen rose to her feet, and they began kissing passionately.
This is why I wanted to stay at home.
Sorry, Ethan. My wife is just so...
Get a room already.
Okay, guys. We'll have time for this at the ball. Right now, let's just try to respect one another's personal space and stuff.
Good, because we're here.
Cynthia pulled Chad up the marble steps. Cynthia's makeup made her look more like a zombie than a dead cadet. The uniform was perfect, however, as it was replicated from the original B-13 uniform of that time, 1984. The same colors of silver and blue with just a hint of shoulder pads. Darian and Kristen followed them, looking like a medieval couple from a Renaissance fair. Darian had replicated an actual knight costume, and Kristen's dress made of the finest white silk she could replicate. Tiny embroidered flowers were sewn along the waist. Eric and Ethan as Bill and Ted came next, followed by Sean and Alicia as John Lennon and Yoko Ono.
Wow. Look at the lights. I can't tell if they're lightning bugs or mini lights.
They're small lights with exponential light capability. Magenta class science. What else can I say?
Cynthia, would you like to dance?
Let's go.
All of the couples went out on the dance floor, which had a spiral-shaped blue light that spun clockwise. Near the end of the song, the lights began to drop from the sky like rain or snowflakes, and then they readjusted to a static position for the beginning of the next song.
I can't think of anything more romantic than being with you right now.
I thought you were hungry.
Thanks for the reminder. Let's go find some grub.
Meanwhile, Chad had something pressing on his mind.
Cynthia, there's something I've been meaning to tell you. I'm really starting to care about you. I want you to know that there were 2 women in my past, Denise and Maddie, Darian's sister, that I've had a bit of a hard time getting over. And then you came along and you made me understand what love really is. What it could be. It's not an obsession over someone you can't have. It's not dating someone for a long time and going through all the motions. It's really feeling that feeling of trust. Like you can be yourself around this person no matter what you or they do.
That makes sense.
It's just that you're so free. Like this butterfly that I don't catch. This beautiful exotic creature that flew into my life and trusted me enough to land on the same surface as me for a few moments so that we could share a loving moment together. And then we're separate. And that's okay. I miss you when we're apart, and I cherish times we spend together. And I admire you as a person, a whole separate person from me. The pleasure we feel together is immense, and I feel proud to be worthy enough to share it with you.
Gosh, Chad, that's so damn poetic.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that I'm falling for you, Cynthia. I love you. You don't have to say it back. I just want you to know that this is how I feel in case anything happens.
I thought I was the one being dark tonight. Let's lighten this up, okay? Maybe go get a drink?
During this time, Alicia, Sean, Kristen, Darian, Max, John, Eric, and Ethan somehow began dancing the Macarena.
Did you know that Tristan and Isolde had horrible dreams about the future?
Maybe they went to the academy. It would be worth looking into. Just then, the entire last line of the Macarena dancers fell into the curtains that hung from the unending ceiling.
At least we know it's not the Alice flower causing the calamity this time.
Word up! It's not us this time.
The lights in the Coliseum began blinking, and the hum of the Academy shield generator stopped, creating a disturbing silence.
I don't hear the Academy shield.
And it doesn't make sense to drop it down during the ball.
Shit, I think we might be under attack. Darian looked around and saw that there was a lot more people in the Coliseum than were there just a few minutes ago. Most were dressed in what appeared to be Renaissance gear. Darian thought he had seen some of them come in little by little. All of a sudden, Darian noticed that some of the guests were feeding off other guests. Vampires had gotten into the Coliseum undetected. There were screams coming from all over the Coliseum. And then the main doors burst open, and there stood Dominator, surrounded by Red Beetles. The Red Beetle army flanked the students on both sides.
Kill them all! Leave no one alive!
Yes, Madam Dominator. It shall be done.
The vampires in the crowd continued to feed off victims until a large electrical burst separated them from their victims.
Try it, assholes! I dare you!
Cynthia was not the only one ready. Eric had a fireball in his right hand and he flung it at one of the vampires. The vampire burst into flame and turned to ash and dust.
We're not as defenseless as you think, bitch!
Darian and Max were floating. Pharos was crouched down over one of the Red Beetles, tearing it to pieces, growling and snarling all the while. But there were too many of them.
Everybody, quick, run to the forest, the one from our last class.
Every student and teacher who had not already been killed ran out of the Coliseum toward the densely packed forest that was just a half a mile from the Coliseum. They were scared, but this was what they were training for. The vampires and Red Beetles ran after the teachers and students, picking a few off here and there. All of a sudden, the demons were stopped in their tracks by a large firebolt from Eric.
Stay the fuck away from my friends, you motherfuckers!
The firebolt bought the teachers and students enough time to reach the forest. Once there, Alicia pointed to a rock wall and then touched a few spots on the oddly textured rock. A panel opened up to the right of the rock wall, and within the alcove were several advanced weapons. There was a sniper rifle, several plasma guns, and a sword. Alicia gave the sword to Darian, the sniper rifle to John, and the plasma guns to Sean and Max. Kristen extended her amethyst shield as far as she could, in order to protect as many people as possible.
Let's show these fuckers who's boss and why it's never a good idea to attack this school.
A loud scream came from behind them. Alicia looked over to see a large stinging possum beetle picking off the Red Beetles one by one. By the time it was done, there were only 4 Red Beetles left, along with about 10 vampires. As she fought, Alicia saw several dozen students slain, one after another. Another teacher, Miss Maya Kiernos, joined the fray to protect a large group of them, but she was summarily cut down. The vampires picked off the students she was being protected. As she looked around and saw hundreds of injured students and teachers, she realized there was no way to determine if any would become vampires until their healing began. Back in the forest, the cadets and teachers had stood their ground.
I need a good vantage point.
He pointed at a spot near the top of a nearby tree.
There, Darian, can you fly me up there?
Without a word, Darian grabbed John by the elbows and flew him up to the top of the tree. He carefully set John down where it was safe. This work for you?
Perfect.
Darian flew back down, only to see Max phasing partway through one of the red beetles and then coming back into phase while partially inside of him. This killed him instantly. Max smiled.
Got one!
While Darian, Max, Eric, and Ethan fought the vampires in hand-to-hand combat, John started zeroing in on the remaining 3 red beetles. He fired the sniper rifle. One of the red beetles collapsed dead. Eric threw another fireball at the vampires and instantly killed 2 of them. Dominator, seeing that she was outmanned and outmaneuvered, and knowing that Destroyer's mission was complete, ordered the remaining 3 red beetles to retreat. They hopped on their dimension cycles and vanished. With the threat of the red beetles and Dominator gone, they only had 5 vampires left to kill. Darian, seeing that the leader of the attack had left, focused his attention on the remaining vampires, and with the help of Eric, Max, and Cynthia, completed the task.
We did it! It's not over yet. We need to get the shield back up. Chad, do you know where the shield generator is?
Yes, I'll head over there now.
Chad ran toward the shield generator, and once there, quickly assessed the situation, and, noticing there was nothing physically wrong with the controls, activated the shield. Back in the forest, Darian helped get John down from the tree, and things began to finally calm down.
How the hell did this happen? Aren't there supposed to be safeguards against this type of thing?
Yes, I'm very surprised that the shield failed. It hasn't failed the entire time I've been here.
Chad entered the scene.
That's because it didn't fail. Somebody turned it off.
That's a very serious accusation. Are you sure?
Positive. There were no burned out elements. I don't understand what happened.
The shield only ever goes down to allow for dorm buildings to phase in. Maybe the system got tricked into thinking that was happening. I can see it's back up. Thanks, Chad.
Yep.
Everyone, let's head back to the Coliseum. There will be questions that need to be answered by the authorities. We also need to assess the damage done by this attack.
They all headed back to the Coliseum. Once there, they noticed that there were no bodies on the floor. There were a few blood pools here and there, but no people, dead or alive. I don't understand. Where did all the dead bodies go?
This is quite odd indeed.
Darian and Kristen were in bed, resting. It had been a long day. Chris, I am so fucking tired.
Me too. And fighting is so exhausting.
It sure is. I know I missed some classes this week because of how exhausting my dreams, or rather nightmares, have become. I really don't want to miss any more classes. To an outside observer, it may seem like I'm not taking my classes seriously, but I do. Kristen was brushing her long hair. She gave him a quick smile.
Then you need to not miss any more classes. Also, I really want to find out if I have any other abilities, but I don't want to have to bug Jake about it. What if we train on the side?
What do you mean? How would we train without Jake?
Well, your nightmares, at least one of them was real, and that makes this something really important. Besides, I think Jake and Sam have a lot on their plates. We could just use our textbooks on the tablet and find information about our abilities. That could at least make it easier for Jake to train us. Give us a leg up on the situation. We could research nightmares and our abilities after classes.
That's not a bad idea. What if we look into that tomorrow? I think that Jake would really appreciate it. It would show that we are serious about learning our abilities. Plus, I think something bad is coming, and the more prepared we are to fight it, the better.
I had another thought, too. Last night you talked to Sam about Matt. I wonder if there is a way to reach out to him to see if he is still affected by whatever took him over that night.
I don't know. I really don't want to use the IDC for that. I think it would put whoever we were talking through at risk. When we get back, I'll make a special effort to go see him at his reform school. We can go together. I think if he did attack, your shield might make a good defense. Kristen finished brushing her hair and put the brush down on her side table.
What if he can give us some insight on whatever is coming? Don't we need that sooner rather than later?
Yeah, but we're in another dimension. There really is no other way for us to check on him.
What if I open a window to wherever he is? I was taught how. We could at least see if he is acting in a way that would be considered dangerous, and he wouldn't know we were looking at him.
Darian pondered that idea for a moment. That's not a bad idea. Do you have enough energy to do that now, or would you rather wait?
I think we've done enough today. Let's try to remember to do that tomorrow.
Yeah, let's get some sleep. We can worry about Matt another day. He's waited this long to hear from me. He can wait a little longer. Darian turned off the lights and laid down. Kristen followed his example, and before long, They were both asleep.
August 28th, 1995. I've got to take an inventory before I leave this dimension. 8 tiny liquor bottles for first aid. 1 Zima, tastes like gas, but hey, it's my sleep aid. 15 Slim Jims, 2 cans of Easy Cheese. 30 water cleaning tablets. 10 MREs, yum. 8 granola bars. 10 packs of Skittles, because why not? Not much to go on, so we'd better supply up. Who knows when we'll reach another location with fresh food and water. Things have been hectic. It's been a while since I had the chance to write in here. Jake and I have been working on my ability to open portals. He said that he's really impressed because usually earthly dimensions are difficult places to learn new abilities. He mentioned an academy that he used to teach at that exists on an astral plane. The academy moves around so that the enemies can't find it. According to him, it was shut down a while ago, but because of the fact that we know there are many alternate worlds, we've decided to attempt to find another version of this academy. It must still exist somewhere, right? We're getting ready to say a final farewell to this Earth, which Jake says is called Terra 2. This makes me wonder if there's a world where Max, Darian, Kristen, and the rest of my family still exist. I guess I'll find out soon enough. I almost have the portal ability down. I just have to be able to keep it open long enough for us to go through and learn how to control where it takes us. Jake also told me that some people with this ability use remote control devices to more accurately determine where they are going. We don't have access to one of those, so I guess I'm on my own there. I want to see a world where my family still exists, even if I can't join them because I already exist there in some form. Just knowing that they are alive somewhere would give me an enormous sense of peace. End journal entry.
Hey, babe. Looking fine. What's different? Wait. Let me guess. Where's your scar? Did you get it removed?
No, babe. I'm just trying something new. This makeup chick came to the door and she gave me a free makeover. She did such a good job that I decided to let her go instead of feeding her to the vampires.
Wow, you really did like her. You guys gonna be BFFs or something?
I'm not sure yet. I did place an order with Sassy Lashes with Ash. I suppose I'll follow her in her magenta class dimensions on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. That way I can find her in case I change my mind.
Still, it does look like she gave you a pretty good hookup on nature-inspired products. And you look wicked hot.
Thanks, babe.
That's Sassy Lashes with Ash. Look it up on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can purchase her products from her website, sassylasheswithash.com. Thank you for listening to the 6th episode of Battalion 13 the podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Battalion13HQ. Email us at b13@battalion13hq.com. Support the show by becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/Battalion13HQ.